Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. When it comes to grieving, many of us try to find ways that we can comfort those who are feeling the grief, especially when it comes to the loss. And when it comes to a mother who loses a child, well, many of us kind of stand in the shadows wondering what can we say or do to make someone feel comfort. And many times you might have to ask yourself the question, is it them that we're trying to comfort or perhaps ourselves? Because at times we just feel a loss of how we can go about doing that very thing to make someone feel much, much more comfort, especially after the loss of a child. It's kind of interesting to know that there are many emotional challenges that are faced by a grieving mother, even after months and years when the loss has happened of a child, and appreciate the inability of a bereaved mother to forget her pain. Ever. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is author of the book Softening the Grief, who's had her own particular experience, and she shares with us what we can say and do to comfort a bereaved mother. I'd like to welcome Joan Markwell to the Beyond 50 radio program. Joan, thank you for joining us.
And Daniel, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it so much.
A lot of times, as I've discovered when it comes to this, especially when it comes to bringing out a book, somebody is showcasing their experience in such a way they feel they could reach out and say, you know, it's through my experience that perhaps I could help at least make the experience of someone else out there a reality of being better. Tell us what happened in your world that made you do this.
Well, let me point out, Daniel, that there are 4 authors on this book, and all 4 of us have lost our children. Patty Hollingsworth, Janie Fields, and Susie McDonald. Janie is my sister-in-law, so we've had a double whammy there. But our experiences not only come from our own, but we have surveyed and talked to so many other mothers that it covers such a spectrum, not only religion, race, just every situation, the circumstances of the death, and it all boils down to that we are all mothers. And so we take our experiences, no matter how unpleasant they are, and go from there and take the middle road, so to speak, of how we feel, and incorporated those experiences into this book. And then we give you our heartfelt experience as to what that feels like, so you know that this journey is so difficult, so that you can understand that our fixes on the way that you can comfort us work both ways. You walk away feeling better, and we walk away that you sincerely have made an attempt at making us feel better.
Now, as I was reading in the book, I realized, that a lot of what you share in here seems to be pretty, I guess, right there. It's right at your fingertips. But sometimes it's not as easy actually to put into practice, I guess, because as I was saying earlier, a lot of times when somebody experiences somebody grieving, especially when it's as significant as a mother, for instance, grieving her child, that puts a person who sort of feels like the outsider in a position of feeling a bit uncomfortable because they realize, well, I can't take away the pain, I know this, but what do I do? Does that seem to be something that you have experienced with others?
Absolutely, and that is the crux of our book, because so many people walk up to us, and unfortunately when they walk away, we have this thought in our mind, I can't believe he just said that to me. Or we see them slinking away from us in the grocery stores or different places because they don't know what to say. And it's not that they have ill intentions. They really want to comfort us, but they just don't know what to say. So in our book, we try to take those things that they really mean them as a way to help us and turn them into a way that they can express them. And again, we walk away both feeling more comforted.
Now, let's go ahead and talk about some of the ways that you talk with, or that you have written about here in the book. And like I said, these, as you hear them, seem pretty simple. But again, they're soft steps. They're things that people need to realize it takes time. And I think the first big one here is allowing the mom to share her pain. Kind of describe what that process is there. Simple as it sounds, I know there's probably a little bit more to it than we think.
Absolutely. Losing a child, it exposes everything about a person. It is absolutely the deepest, rawest pain anyone can live through. And so you're permanently changed. And, we are so lost. It kind of visually reminds me of those air dancers you see just waving in the wind. And we're just carried along by emotions. And, everything that's made us is kind of sucked out of us, and we're looking for some kind of support. So it takes a long time before our minds and our bodies return to a more familiar state. So what you see is a person that you don't know because you are used to the person that we used to be, and now we're a person you don't know, and then we're someone that you are yet to know. So you need to learn to be, I call it the 3 S's, sensitive, sincere, and sympathetic. So you kind of have to forget all of the old cliches that you say, such as, you look so strong, or if I mention your name, it'll make you cry, and all of those. But back to your comment about sharing our pain, that is so true because our grieving, we're so paralyzed by it that it's hard to resume a normal routine. And it takes so much time for us to come out of the shell that we're in. So we need to get out of it, but going shopping or even answering the phone for a while is just impossible, and you can't expect us to come to you. We can't. And you can't tell us to call you when we're ready. We won't. And so it has to be our family and our friends coming to us to pull us out of this hole, this sinking hole that we keep sinking into. And you can't give up on us. You have to learn to share our pain. And it's a long, long process.
Now, so what does a person do? Do they just simply listen?
That is the number one thing. So many people want to give us advice. And all we want you to do, especially in the beginning, is just come sit with us. Hold our hand. Listen to us. Cry with us. Don't give us advice. Don't tell us what to do. That's all you need to do. I know one of the most simple things someone did for me was sit on a sidewalk one day, put their arm around me, and cry with me. That was it. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I still remembered it. We didn't say a word. We just sit there on the walk and just cried together.
Yeah, and that's so important, too, because, sometimes, or it seems like a lot of times people say things such as, it's okay, and things like that, and you realize, well, you may say that, but that's just not really exactly what it's going to feel like or be for probably quite some time.
Right. The loss of a child has a lifetime effect on a parent. And this can go a lot of ways. We wrote our book from a mother's perspective, but I know there are a lot of people out there that suffer grief in so many ways. And, you can't expect a recovery from a tragedy of this magnitude in any time frame that someone else sets aside for you. This takes years to a lifetime. So you have to plan on a long-term commitment of compassion and understanding and patience. And you have to, when people start bringing over all of those casseroles and things in the beginning, there's only so much of that you can eat in the beginning. And we need a little bit in a short time and a whole lot for a long time. So my advice there is bring over the whole can of coffee. Bring over the whole roll of paper towels that we can use for a long time because it's a long haul.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the other steps that you suggest is supporting in a memorial project. Talk about that.
Well, doing things for a child is like, number one, it keeps us busy. Number two, it keeps us focused on something. And those things, my niece did a memorial garden for her daughter. My daughter was a proponent of the Humane Society, and she left behind 2 young sons. So we did a drive for the Humane Society. And it was ironic that when my niece passed away, this memorial garden that her family built, all of the rocks that were used to build this came from my daughter's farm. But that was a long-time project. And my grandsons were involved, and we went to stores all over our city and put out jars to raise money for the Humane Society, and then collected money to further on down the road to support this cause for her. And it made us feel good. We felt good about doing something in her memory. And it doesn't have to be a big project. Patty, one of our other writers, they built their church, added on, and they built a room for their daughter Keely. And it was a special room for special kids where they learned to play music. Susie did a drive for motorcycle riders. It was just became a huge thing. And, we just did things where we could donate to other causes. And it doesn't have to be a large thing. It can be something in your own backyard, a tree planted here, a little garden there, but something you can focus on. Something, if you want to, you can go there and add to. And you need friends to help you get this started if you can't do something on your own. But it's just a great thing. If you can go there, go there. It's like I said, it's just something to get out of the house and go there and visit. Even though your children are not visibly there in your mind, you can go and talk and see and just imagine their presence there.
Now, when it comes to, getting someone to be able to be in that space, you suggest to provide a safe space for tears.
Correct. And there are so many times where, especially if you're in a work environment, and it's sad, but legally we're only given, and kind of aside, 3 days off work when we have any bereavement. And it's just no way possible someone bury anyone in 3 days, possibly move them out of an apartment or a house or whatever, go back to work and be productive. I know my mindset would be out the window. Fortunately, none of us were in that situation. We're given 6 weeks or more to bond with a new child, and then 3 days to watch them go. That's terrible. It's just terrible. But tears, there are so many. The tears just come. We have so many reminders, and we all have what I call just quirks. You can be anywhere. I can be in the mall and see the back head of a little blonde-headed girl, and it's a reminder of your child, and you break down. I used to pick up when my daughter was going through treatment for her cancer. I didn't miss a penny, and it sounds silly, but now I would never pick up a heads-up penny. And I tear up every time I see one. I drive through a window to order something to eat, and I know exactly what I want. And when I get there, I order what she would want. They're quirks that we have that just make you tear up at the smallest things. I can't say that there's a safe place, but we all need rescuers, is what I call them. A lot of times we're at places where our children should be there. It might be a birthday party. We're at their age. They should be there. If you go to a 12-year-old, someone invites you to a birthday party, and your child was 12 years old, and they should have been there. They should have one. You're going to tear up. If you go anywhere and you look around and you think, my child should have been there. And at that time, we call them rescuers. Always have a hope that there's a rescuer, someone that will sidle up to you and ask you if you need to leave. And we always park in a place where we can get away from situations like that. Don't get parked where you can't get out quickly. So you can get to your car, you can have a little cry, and escape from the situation. It just goes on and on. You have to have safe places, and you have to have people that are there for you.
Now, when you were talking about you can't pick up pennies, that are heads up, that's kind of one of those things people say, oh, come on. But be understanding is one of the things you talk about.
Right. It's just, they bring back all of the hurt, all of the reminders, because you were so diligent then. And you see, this past weekend, and you want to be there for someone that's in the same situation you are. And with this book, that's what we do. It's not so much writing the book, because we all gave it our all in this book. We opened our hearts. I mean, in this book, we let it all out. But for us, even though we came together, and that's what we did. For us now, it's like now we're standing in the middle of a circle, and now all these doors are opening, and people are coming out, and they're saying, I went through that. I did that. I felt that. And I thought I was alone in that. And now I realize I wasn't crazy. There's other people out there, and they felt that way. And I didn't know that I was going through this alone. And so even now, that has really meant more than reading this book, is seeing people, not people, but mothers who have lost their children. They're coming out and say, now I realize that I wasn't crazy, that the rest of us are going through this, and I see that you have gone through this, and it has helped me realize that I can do this. I am not going to die in the next 3 months from the grief. That we move on, but we need others to help us get through this, and we need this and we need that, and no, I can't pick up another penny, but we're moving on, and it's going to be a lifetime thing, but I'm not crazy.
Yeah, sometimes, to others, not being that person, sometimes the behavior might seem, quite irrational. And the thing about it is, as we were saying, be understanding and certainly give a space for tears and listening, is very important. One I was interesting, but I found intriguing, but how true it can be is being able to help the mother sleep. Tell us about that.
Help the mother sleep?
Yes.
We all work on that. What I guess releasing some of, the things that we find is being able to release some of the frustration that we go through, and having a friend come over, and it may seem ridiculous, but one of the things that we tell them to do when it gets beyond the madness is for someone to bring them a dozen eggs and go out, take them out in the backyard and throw them. It sounds silly, but it releases so much hurt, anger, pain, and every time you throw an egg, it helps. And so we always say throw eggs when you're at that point. It sure beats breaking every dish in the kitchen. We do give some suggestions in our book, but what we really do is tell you how to take some of the things that people tell us and turn them around and give the audience the way that they can say them that does help us. Not ill-intentioned, but they think they're helping. And tell them how they do help them, such as, time heals all wounds. You're so strong. We get so tired of hearing all those things. It's an easy fix, just like you are so strong. People have to understand that even though we show up and our makeup is in place and we look good, all our strength's been drained away. We're exhausted from trying to look strong. When we feel weak as kittens, all of us are propped up by various crutches, and you knock those away, and we all end on our knees. And the thing about it is that weakness coming, from people that are formally unshakable frightens others. Heck, it frightens us. So instead of saying that, just say strength is one of your assets. And I know it's hard to be strong right now, and I'm here for you to lean on. Don't tell us you look so strong. We're not. We're not. Time heals all wounds.
And a lot of times it's a matter of what you do in that time that also matters as well.
Absolutely. And I think Rose Kennedy, she says this best. She said, "It has been said that time heals all wounds. I do not agree. The wounds remain. In time, the mind, protecting its sanity, covers it with scar tissue and the pain lessens. But it's never gone." Now, that is so true. You know, for us, it's not about how long we live without wounds. It's how long we've lived without another wound. Our life is, it's like a shattered plate. And even after meticulous gluing, we're never going to be the same. And we reach out for our loved one, like someone who's lost a limb. It's a phantom pain and a missing part, and we're constantly reaching for it in just so many different ways. So you can say, I hope in time your pain and grief will soften. But time is never going to heal it.
And then one of the simplest things you offer in the end is just simply offer a hug.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We were laughing the other day because of everything that's going on. How much of a hug do you give nowadays?
Mm-hmm.
But, just reach out, take their hand, and sometimes, just pull them in. Just a little, I was never a touchy-feely person. And right now, I take all the hugs I can get. It doesn't have to be a big bear hug. Just a hug, just to let them know you're feeling for them. And it doesn't have to be a big speech. Just let them know. I was thinking about you the other day, or I was thinking about you and your child the other day, and whatever, mention the child's name. We'd love to hear our children's name. It's a memory for us. We don't want to be the only ones thinking about our child. We may cry, but they're tears of joy because someone else is thinking about our child. When people say, I don't want to mention your name because it'll make you cry, we're thinking, no, mention their name. It's great. Don't be afraid to do that. The worst thing that people do is when they turn the conversation around and make it about them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine this happening to me. At that point, we're through listening.
Right.
We don't care, whatever. We're done.
Yeah, it's like I said in the beginning of the show, it's all seemingly so simple, but, the task is being able to put it into practice and realize that, it's patience, it's time, as you were mentioning, how, what we do in that time, that sort of thing. And being understanding doesn't try to put you in a position where you say, oh, I understand this, and you'll get over it, like you said, not making it about yourself, but really about them. And a lot of times just being present and being silent is probably one of the best things a person can do, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yes. When someone comes up and says something like, be thankful you have other children. Well, the first thought that goes through our mind is, well, which child would you want to give up?
Yeah.
It's meant, I guess, to console us. But, a better comment might be, and I'm thankful you know, hopefully your other children can help you through this. Not, I'm glad you have other children, but hopefully your other children will help you through this. You know, our thought goes in a different direction. So, you know, it's just in how you say it. When you walk up, you know if you're going to say something, know that you're going to say something positive and sincere. Know what you're going to say is the main thing, and think about it in a way that we're not going to take it negatively. We've got a whole litany of things in the book, of things that people say. And, you know, again, not intentionally, but they just come out wrong. You know, your child wouldn't want you to feel this way. Well, you know, we understand that you don't understand that our child is no longer here. And it's not that our child is no longer here. We know that's true, but we don't know how to be happy without our child. And we're carrying a sorry case of survivor's guilt. So it's impossible to feel any happiness for a long, long time. And, you know, we truly want to live our lives, you know, as our children would like if they were still here, but too much has changed. You know, we no longer fit into our family's lives. And seeing everything moving on, you know, we're pushed into a way we cannot, you know, without them. So our old life is formally blocked. And seeing others being happy with their families, it drains our emotions. And we don't have that interaction. So, you know, maybe you could just say, I have many fond memories of your child. Tell us how much happiness our child brought to you. You know, sharing those memories ease our pain. But don't tell us your child wouldn't want you to feel this way.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it just goes on and on. Oh, you know, another good one. Everything happens for a reason.
That one actually bugs me. It was meant to be, you know, I mean, they take the spiritual approach to it. It's like, really? So anyway, go ahead.
You know, and we're thinking our children were good, generous, loving individuals. And, of course, we're thinking there's never a good enough reason that our children were taken. You know, and we're totally bitter by this. Well, why couldn't it have been somebody else's, which is terrible, a terrible thing. But, you know, it just brings back an awareness of the horrific pain, you know, we endure. It's terrible. And then the bonding that we experience has transformed the four authors. Was that the reason?
Right.
To write this book? It's still not a good enough reason. There's no good enough. You know, and when the four of us shed tears at the same time, you know, that's the breaking point emotionally for a day. I guess, you know, if one person has learned from the book, but it's still not a good enough reason. We can't think of a good enough reason for our child to be taken. So, maybe a person could say it goes beyond reason for any child to be taken from a mother. And there was certainly no good reason to lose yours. To us, that makes a lot better sense. Oh, here's a good one that I just can't believe anyone says, well, I'm sitting here feeding my pet so he doesn't make any noise, is I lost my pet so I can sympathize with you.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. You know, we all love our animals. Like I said, we collected for the Humane Society for my daughter. You know, but to compare an animal's death to your child's death, you know, our children were our bloodlines. They were a piece of us. So they were our piece of our future that's been stripped away from us. And at that time, we don't want to hear about your pet. You know, and perhaps, you know, you could say, I've lost loved ones and pets that I've loved dearly, but never a child. And just thinking about losing my pet makes me cry. So I could never really fully understand the depth of your depth of your pain. I mean, we have heard it all, from talking to other mothers, and we had to limit the number of things that we covered in this book. But I could sit here all day long and talk to you about things and about what we have gone through and about our own children and the circumstances that we all experienced before and after, and try to educate the whole world.
Right.
Which is our purpose. Oh, here's a good one. Dying is a natural part of life. Now, the problem with that one is there's nothing natural about one's child dying before the mother. No, we gave life to that baby, and to us, they're always our babies. You know, and we feel strong urges to protect our young. We're not supposed to have a conversation with a child about that child's impending death. It's just so unnatural. And some of our children had a level of acceptance in knowing they were dying, yet they showed concern with the living. I heard my daughter say, "Mom, it's okay." Or, "Mom, I want you to be okay." And you want to tell me dying is a natural part of life? We had the death discussion flip-flop on us. So, what can you say? You can say the death of a child before the parent must bring unbearable pain. It seems so unnatural and unexpected. It's certainly not the natural order of life for any mother to lose her child. My heart goes out to you.
You know, I was just thinking as you were saying that, too, is what you might be able to, since we tend to feel these needs to say things. Generally, I think it's because people say what they say because, A, they really don't know what to do. Yeah, it's just, it's that idea of control. I wish I could control this situation, but I can't. And that you might say, this has certainly caused you tremendous pain. Mm. And I would like to just be with you. Not necessarily to share it, but just be with you in this moment. And I was just thinking also, as we've been talking about this, what I had done one time, and now this won't seem related, but it is when you think of what I did. There was a mother who was having a baby. Okay? Now, that's certainly different than this, but you'll see the steps are very much the same. So I went up to the hospital. I was pretty much one of the only people that went up to visit her. You know, everybody else was saying they were going to go up there, but most of them didn't. So I go up there, and what I did is I thought I'd just kind of bring up a nice little, food basket, because I knew how hospital food could be. So I made, a couple simple sandwiches. But the big thing is, as I was sitting there with her, is I also brought up a Dr. Seuss book, and I just simply read to her. And she was just sitting there and just watching her smile on the whole thing, on the whole thing. And I thought to myself, but what would be different if you did that, say, in the situation we're talking about here? I just thought I'd come over and read you a story if that's okay. And even if the story reminds you, for instance, of a story that perhaps your child loved and this person didn't know, well, I used to read that to my son or daughter, and oh my God, but see, realize that's still okay. You can just sit in that space for a minute and, again, just be there and allow them to express whatever that is. So you see how that kind of triggers a lot of the things that you're talking about.
That's true. And, if they want to speak to it or talk about it or invite you into the conversation, that's great. And if not, what you're doing or what you read to them, if they don't want to hear anymore, they'll probably say that's enough. So that probably brought her so many smiles that she would have missed out on the whole thing. Hadn't joined her. It was a great idea.
You can always just make hot chocolate when you show up.
Exactly.
Who doesn't like a cup of hot cocoa, right?
Exactly. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't take a lot. It's like I said, people just bring so much in the beginning, a whole lot more than you can eat or want down the road. Are you ready for a cup of hot chocolate? I got it.
Here's another one, too, as you were talking about things that you really shouldn't say, or, just don't say them because they don't help. As you were talking earlier about, I guess this was meant to be, or something like that. But here's another one that really drives me, it's kind of, anyway, here it is. It's, they're in a better place. What are you suggesting, that where they were sucks?
Well, we touch a little bit on, in our book, we have a section, I'm going to call it the religious section. And, we talk to so many people. And we talk to, from the atheist to the people that didn't know what they would do without their church family. So we covered the whole spectrum, but we have a section in there that's dealing with God issues. And everybody had a lot to say on that. And we didn't want to say a whole lot because we wanted whoever picked up the book to be able to do as they chose on that. But we did write a little bit on that. And it's a difficult topic. We all had different thoughts on it. I went to church, but it took me 2 years to get back. And I'm still not totally back. At the time, you're on a guilt trip. You're mad at yourself. You're mad at God. You're mad at doctors. You're mad at everybody.
Yeah, and you really probably have a feeling like you feel cheated too, don't you?
Well, absolutely. you're just, plus you're brokenhearted, and you're in a little cocoon of your own that nobody's going to get to you, but some do. I mean, we have a section on healthcare providers. We have the section on clergy. And I will tell you, though, the best ones to turn to were the ones that worked in the hospitals and dealt a lot in those situations. But we were amazed with the clergy who just came out of seminaries and things like that, because they really aren't, and I'm not going to say across the board, I don't want to get myself in trouble, they're not trained to deal with the grieving. They are taught how to run a church and the business of the church, and they're taught how to deal with the grieving from the pulpit. And they're not taught one-on-one. And that's who you want to go to, because you think that that's where you're supposed to go.
Right.
And the same with funeral homes and things like that. And I have talked to so many of them who say the same things in this book that you're not supposed to say.
Well, how about this one, speaking of the clergy? Well, they're with God now. So they weren't before?
Exactly. Right. No comment. And we had, I'll just give you, a brief. We had one woman. She lost 3 children. I won't give a detail, but it was the fault of one of her children, and the clergy came to her and said the church would prefer that he be not buried with the other 2 or the service with the other 2, because he was the cause of the death of the other 2. And she said, but he was my child too, and I loved him as much as the other 2, and that should be my decision. And I want them all together. And, you get in situations like that, and like I said, as mothers, we love all of our children. And yes, there's complicated situations and things that, are very, very hard to deal with. But in the end, every mother loves her child. Something that you have to deal with on an individual basis. But, clergy are just, at the hospitals, and I sat on the airplane with, I talked to, I can't think, with the police, help me out here. They are at all the hospitals. I'll give you a little Milky Way if you can give me the word here.
The police, or?
No, who counsel the police, and they're at all the hospitals.
Oh, okay.
You got it.
That eludes me, too.
Oh, come on. Well,
okay.
They're great, because that's who they deal with, and they... come on, for crying out loud, both of us. I know it's on both of our tongues. They're at all the hospitals to deal with...
grief specialist, I would think, or trauma specialist.
Oh, there's a name. But anyway, they're great, as opposed to someone who's a clergy. To hang up, we'll both think of a name.
It's in the book.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. It gives people all the reason to go out and get this.
Anyway, someone who has dealt with these situations for a long time, whether, they're clergy, grief counsel, are great. But like I said, and I have talked to several clergy who agree with me and say, no, it is not taught. And it is something that you would think that they are taught. And until you get the experience, then it is amazing that who you would think you were supposed to go to is not your go-to person. And that's all I'll say on that because I'll get in a lot of trouble. I'll hear about it.
Now, first of all, thank you for coming on the program and, again, reaching out to our listeners to let them know that should they happen to be in the experience of grieving for the loss of a child, or they know someone who is grieving. And again, this could be just recent, or it could be something that even happened years ago. I mean, it never goes away. It gets easier, but it never goes away. How can they find this book?
It's on Amazon, and you can get it in the Kindle version or Goodreads or any other book outlet. And, of course, we would appreciate if they enjoy the book, they can, of course, give us a review, greatly appreciated. And if they would like to contact me, I don't even mind giving, we have a website. It's JoanEMarkwell.com. Out to me personally. That's what we do. And we would gladly speak with you. And we would gladly speak at any venue. We would love to do that.
Well, very good. Well, I want to thank you so much.
Chaplains.
Chaplains, there you go.
That's what they are.
I knew if I filibustered long enough, we would figure it out.
They are great.
Well, Joan, thank you so much for being on the program today and sharing your book, Softening the Grief. I'm sure this will certainly be a very good thing for people to know about and to have, so they can, pretty much know what they can and maybe shouldn't do, in the end to help a grieving mother. And thanks for being on the program.
No, thanks for having me.
You bet. I want to thank you, the listeners out there, for tuning in. Again, the book is Softening the Grief, and as she said, you can certainly find that, I believe, on Amazon.com.
Correct.
You can also discover more at Beyond50Radio.com. That is the number 50. We do encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter to keep up to date with what's going on in the world of Beyond 50 and upcoming programs. Thank you again for joining us. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past halfway.